Good morning. It's early in the morning here in India, but my guests, I want to thank you for joining me all the way from the US, where it's late at night. Mr. Rohan Singh, based out of New York, and in renewable energy. That's what he does. And of course, you're familiar with Dr. Saurabh Jha, who is joining us from Philadelphia and returning, really. And it's an important topic of discussion. And I just want to thank you all. I don't know if you've been tracking the response to the H1B situation from India, because in India it's dominated the headlines since it was announced, and quite understandably, it's upset a lot of people. It was unanticipated. There are videos going viral of people returning home for vacations and then hearing on the plane that this scheme was being scrapped, and then actually disembarking. So it's been quite a bit of a shock. People are seriously contemplating returning from the US. And now I just want to jump back to you and to ask you. Let's start with Dr. Jha. Saurabh, what has been the response in the US? Is it even in the media? Are people even talking about it? Or is just one other thing that Trump has done?
Morning, Alvita. Thank you for inviting me, and it's a very important topic. The thing is that it has made headlines, quite splash actually,
It's a very
particularly
important
in my sector, which is healthcare, where there are thousands of doctors on a H1B visa, particularly in underserved parts of the United States. So it's a very big deal. And when it came out, it did shake a lot of people's, well, woke them up for alternatives, what to do. It has since transpired that the visa fee is only for the newcomers, not for those who actually have the H1B currently. There was one point where I think the guy Lutnick, I think, he said that
Howard Lutnick, yeah.
if you're in India and you're coming back and you haven't paid, then you can't come back or something like that. So it is a big deal, and there are a lot of ramifications which we're going to discuss on this episode. Healthcare is, of course, one of the big ones because a lot of people are on H1B. I came on a H1B, so it's, of course, very personal. And though every immigrant thinks that their journey is quite unique, in reality, we were all there. I don't know about my colleague, Rohan Singh. Um, were you an asylum seeker from Punjab, police? Or I don't know
And he
what.
drives the knife right in. All right, Miss Dr. Jha, let's get into it. Yeah, well, great to be here, firstly. Joy to meet you for the first time, Advaita, and I just need half an excuse to spar with my old friend, although not so much of a friend, more of an adversary these days, but a friendly adversary. Yeah, I actually agree with everything that Dr. Jha just said. It did make headlines. Obviously, it was one of the things that was hotly discussed between the two candidates over the last election cycle. It was seen as a giveaway by the Dems. It was seen as a way of destroying the country. It does fit into the overall narrative of we're selling America, we're giving it away, we're opening the border. So it does sort of come within that narrative. But to answer your first question, is it just another antic from this administration? Yeah, I mean, we all saw the announcement that was made when Howard Lutnick did make it very clear that this is an annual fee, and it was only afterwards that Caroline Levitt had to come up with like a 4 or 5 point clarification to say, no, it's not an annual fee; it's a one-time fee. No, it does not apply to existing visa holders. It's only for new ones. No, it doesn't apply for 2025. It's for 2026. So yeah, there's a lot of like bombast that this administration is known for, and then they have to sort of cover it up. And to Dr. Jha's point, they were very quick to point out that, and I don't know if this is a part of the White House clarification or not, but they were very quick to point out that this does not apply to doctors, for example, because getting medical professionals in the middle of Omaha, Nebraska, for example, is a problem. So,
Yeah.
that is clearly something that's been carved out. And here's the other thing that I found that was very interesting, which is that while any company has to pay this amount one time, which frankly in the grand scheme of things is nothing, but we'll talk about that separately. If you can argue through the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, so if you can get Kristi Noem on your side and say that you need to bring in a whole bunch of people because it's quote unquote, and I use air quotes here, it's for the national interest, then that's another way of getting around it. So some company, I don't know, Amazon or OpenAI or any of these AI companies can say, well, we're building a project to counteract global cyber terrorism, or we're building
Right. Right.
defenses against China. So
The
we really
Chinese
need to bring in
infos.
all these. Right. So if you can sort of say that this is anti-China, if you can somehow say that this is building our borders, if you can somehow say that it's a national security, then it's crap. So already I see two backdoors, one doctors, two national interest of sort of circumventing this already, which again, like so much from the White House, we've seen where they'll make a statement and then they can quite quickly backtrack from it. But no,
Saurabh,
for the record, Dr. Jha, I did not seek asylum.
Okay. Saurabh, the other thing is that the Americans sort of, under President Trump, seem to be creating a certain image in the world. How should I put it politely? Whether they want to or not, and not making too many friends, along the way. And this is something wherein I get the caveats, but if tomorrow someone wants to switch jobs, what happens then? So you're basically tied to one job, the job you came in on, for forever.
Yeah, I think
You make a. Go ahead.
I think that job portability thing was always a bit of a problem when you're here on a visa, because you're beholden to your sponsor. There is going to be restriction in movement. But I think the first point that you made was about Americans not making a lot of friends in the world. And it does appear that way. And I think that it's part of it is that part of it is what Trump wants to exude, which is the idea that, yes, we can do it on our own, or we've subsidized the world for too long and it's about time everybody else coughs up. There is some truth in what he's saying. It's to give you one example, the drug prices that you see, the Americans pay a lot more for any pharmaceutical product versus the Europeans and anywhere else in the world. And the logic thus far has been that you have to do that because the Americans end up paying for the research and development of pharmaceutical products. And if they didn't, then pharma would come to a stop. It's an example of that. And a lot of Americans feel, with some justification, not a lot, but some justification, that they're being taken for a ride. Now, of course, this is complex because there are multiple layers to this, one of which is that the dollar is the reserve currency. So maybe all of this being taken for a ride is the sacrifice you must make for the dollar to remain the reserve currency. But this is the feeling going around. And the H1B is a symptom of that. There's also a not insignificant, but not hugely large number, but vocal in number, group of the MAGA base, who are not only nationalists but isolationist and parochial, and they have nostalgia of greatness of their Anglo-Saxon civilization. And for want of a better term, they're racist. I wouldn't generalize that to large swaths of the population. Certainly not, not anything more than 25 to 30%, but yet it's still a large number that's now received an opening through Trump. So it's an external appearance that has some justification. There has to be some course correction, but of course, any course correction can overcorrect, and that's what you're seeing right now.
Do you think,
You raise a really good
Rohan?
point here, Advaita.
Yes, go
Yeah.
ahead. Go ahead. Just
No,
a
no, go
little
ahead,
louder,
please.
Rohan. It's a little difficult to hear you.
Can you hear me? Is that better?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, much better.
No, I was just like thinking while Dr. Jha was speaking, the irony of what's happening is amazing because, the Republicans, Team Red, is notorious for always wanting to do things that are sort of trade friendly, big business friendly, big business or small business friendly. So, and again, the irony that the H1B was instituted by Bush Senior in 1990 as a way to sort of say, all right, we need to do something, and a lot of people have attributed it to Clinton, but actually it goes back to Bush when he started this in 1990, and that's what led to the dot-com and the tech boom and everything else. So I just find it ironical that here it is that Team Red is the one who's putting, whether it's tariffs, and I know it's because right now, big business be damned, isolationist issues be damned. But if we can show power by being consolidating or blocking the border, that to Dr. Jha's point, that solidifies the base more. But I do think ultimately when you're not getting the best of the best, when you are losing, I mean, just the other day we heard that China's come up with a program to attract workers. Canada, UK, Australia have always had these programs where it's very clear, it's a point-based system. The younger you are, the more educated you are, the less baggage you bring to the table, the faster, the more points you get, and therefore the faster is your immigration status. So, I think sooner rather than later, as soon as that happens, as soon as more people start getting lost to other countries and the US falls behind in STEM even further, I think this will be reversed. But for now, it just makes, to Dr. Jha's point, it just makes for a strong statement, and it is making a strong statement.
Do you think this has anything to do with the midterms? Since you mentioned a large section of the base supports this, so is there a possibility that it could get maybe reversed post the midterms?
So I think there is a political element to this, but from my understanding, there may be a complication in the courts because there may be some administrative barriers to the executive office bringing up charging for H1Bs, that it may go beyond what the president is
but the initial ruling, Dr. Jha, is that he's allowed to do it. As the executive, he is well within his power to do this. It has to go through the whole gamut. It has to go through Congress, obviously, but apparently, and I'm no expert on the executive, but he certainly has the power to implement it, and that's why he has. Unlike immigration, unlike some of the other stuff, he's well within his right to do it.
Yes, it has to pass through those layers. And the other thing to appreciate here is very natural reaction. Natural doesn't necessarily mean it's right, but it is natural. It is to be expected. The Indians in the United States have done extraordinarily well. Like, it's just not even close as a community, as a subgroup. If you look at the median income, if you look at where they've ended up, perhaps in history, only one community has done this well, which is the Jewish community, who have done well in other spheres as well, like art. But Indians are they like studying and doing exams and not that much into Hollywood.
STEM.
But if you look at the STEM, STEM and others. So, and if you look at the Jewish community, when they were doing extraordinarily well and rapidly well, there was a backlash there as well. So when I say it's natural, it means that if you have any community that just really accelerates in terms of success, there is a feeling of what the hell is going on here? How do they achieve this? And so you would expect that qualities such as hard work, um, family values would resonate very much with the conservative base. And it should, but there's of course the envy element, which supersedes any other commonality that we have. So nothing
It's
wrong with that.
interesting. It's interesting that you bring that up, Saurabh, because I mean, I had the same thought, because at the end of the day, the numbers are very insignificant. There's just a little bit of statistics here: 65,000 visas per year, another 20,000 if you have like an extra degree. But okay, even if it's 85,000 per year, over the last 30 years, that's like not even 0.1% of the population. So even and after 65,000, apparently 70% went to India. So even if you're attracting 32,000, 35,000 new Indians every year, as a percentage of the population, it's really not sort of getting anyone bothered about it. I think the key thing, though, is that the national income, the national average income, is like 35 to 36,000, while the median salary of an H1B visa, which you have to show, is almost 3 times that. It's 110,000. And that's exactly the amount that Trump instituted as the fee. So I think, to Dr. Jha's point, it's seen as, oh my God, who are these people who claim to be more educated than us, who are coming in, taking these jobs and getting paid 3.5 times more than us? There's an element of whatever you want to call it, jealousy, envy. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt your flow.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
and I think there's also been some abuse of H1Bs.
Oh, certainly. I'm so glad you
And
brought that up.
and not a lot, but enough. Like the optics of it is what really is what ends up mattering,
Well,
even
we
if the
don't know
abuse
that,
is,
right? We
yeah.
don't know that. And that's exactly, and again, we'll see how it works out. But this new initiative that the White House has, what's it called? Project Freedom? They're calling it something, where they're doing an investigation on this, where they say that this is really being done by folks who don't want to pay their employees. And all of this really started with Tucker Carlson, who did a in-depth, it's called Project Firewall, for investigation of abuse by large companies. So Project Firewall will be looking at things like underpaying people, benching them and giving them unpaid leave, potential falsification or embellishing of records to show skills that they don't have, body shopping people, where people come in and then after that they just outsource everything back home, multiple registrations where one person is applying for multiple things with an aim of getting any of them. So there is clearly some element of abuse, and this initiative, Project Firewall, is supposed to do that. So to Dr. Jha's point, have there been instances of abuse? Yes, I think HCL was the only company that admitted to abuse, but many others have been doing it. I mean, I can speak from. I've noticed this in a few places where, to the first point that you made, you are limited in your options as an H1B employee. So for a minimum of 6 years, you can only work for the company that sponsored your visa. So they can underpay you, overwork you, and you don't have the rights as an American citizen. So you cannot go to the Department of Labor, you cannot form a union, you cannot be a part of a union. You are basically a expensive indentured labor. So you have very few rights. And then as an Indian, Chinese, Filipino, and Mexican, if you apply for a green card, your processing time takes longer because these 4 countries have the longest wait times. So you could be potentially subject to abuse from your employer for upward of 10 years. So that's the kind of there's a human rights element to this also.
So
How
who
much of one second, Saurabh, how much of this has to do with the fact that Republicans feel that the Indian American community votes primarily for Democrats, and the engagement is limited when it comes to the community and the Republican Party. They
so
have been a
I'll,
traditional vote bank of the Democrat Party. So, how much of that has played into this?
so I'll answer that question in a backward manner. I do think that there is a big problem with Indian Americans, both those who are on H1Bs and those who are citizens, that they're not good at political lobbying. They're not unified. There's no common interest. In fact, it's as fractious here as it is in India. And so there's no unification. And really, this is kind of like the only community that is so fractious.
But Advaita
So
has a
as
point. Sorry to interrupt. But she does have a
yeah,
point. Like for the most part, Indians
they do.
are
But honestly,
voting blue.
this time round, the Indian support for the Republican Party was higher than ever before.
I
So
agree.
if anything, that should have made a difference. So I don't think that is in the calculation as much. That's my instinct. But
I
I do
agree
think
with
that
that.
the lobbying is very poor. I think Shashi Tharoor also mentioned
Yes,
recently
he
on a
did,
trip.
and that
Yeah,
was the other thing that public sentiment in India is, when Prime Minister Modi goes to the US, you see thousands of Indian Americans come out to greet him and express pride in India and express pride in the direction India is taking, and it's a great feeling of goodwill. But when it comes down to the rub, when we need that sort of support, there is silence. And yes, senators who are visiting India at present have said that not one Indian American constituent in their areas, in their seats, in their districts has called and said, look what's happening with this and let's do something. Nobody. Rohan, to
Rohan,
you.
you're saying why is there so much silence?
No, I
Yeah.
think it's more than silence. I think the fundamental issue here is, as a community, we don't have the numbers. We're less than 1% of the population. I totally agree with Dr. Jha and his point about like the might. But again, like the Jews, like the Mormons, um, like many other sort of wealthy but small communities, it's not a vote bank. And if you're relying on the Indian American vote, even if you were to get all of it, and Dr. Jha's right, a lot of it has shifted from, I'd say, it would be 90% Team Blue. Now it's like 60% Team Blue, with still a disproportionate support in large metropolitan cities like Portland and Seattle and Boston and New York. Here's the other interesting thing: the H1B beneficiaries are almost always blue states, and in particular blue cities. So if you just take the top three beneficiaries, the largest petitioners over the 10-year period, over the 5-year period from 2017 to 2022, the top three are New York City, the Bay Area, and Dallas. So who's getting affected? People whose vote really doesn't matter. That's the sad reality.
But
So
there
No,
even if
has,
I think
Saurabh,
there's a
you
deeper.
find that? Yeah.
I think there is one layer of it, but I think there's a deeper psychology over here. So let's be very specific. People love to quote the number of Indian CEOs in the country and name them. And let's just start with the Google guy. What's his
Mm,
name?
he came on an
Yep,
H1B,
came on H1B. He went to
mm,
Wharton,
as did
uh,
Elon Musk, as did
and
Satya
uh,
Nadella.
and was he from IIT Delhi?
yeah.
Why is he not saying anything? I mean, clearly he's not. He's not a slouch. He's the CEO of Google. He must have done a few very good strategic moves in his life, and
Well, I'm
to
pretty
get
sure
where
he's
he's
doing something in the background. He's
could be, but
I mean, they
vocally he,
benefit. Their numbers, the numbers be
but
beneficial.
I think a contrast needs to be made here because the contrast I would make is between Bill Ackman,
Hmm.
right?
Mm,
Bill Ackman and this guy. What's his name? Sundar.
Sundar
right?
Pichai.
Yeah, sorry, I keep forgetting his name. So Bill Ackman, when you had that pro-Hamas, wave in the United States, particularly in Harvard, mobilized. He went ballistic. He went ballistic on Twitter. He used to write these 10,000 word tweets in order to mobilize support against the deans of these various universities. No
But it has
Indian
to
would do
work,
that.
Dr.
No
Jha.
Indian has done that.
Yeah.
No Indian would do that. And why, if I were to give you why, it might upset you and your viewers. So I won't say why I think why. But
No,
it's
go
the same
ahead. Go
reason.
ahead. We're an uncensored panel. Go ahead. You can say it.
It's the same reason why we were colonized for the last 300 years. At
That's
some
true.
point, we have not gotten this out of our mind. It's a very servile. For this guy, Sundar, he's still in that H1B mindset. He's still thinking, oh my God, it's such a great thing to be in the United States. Oh my God, I'm so lucky. And every day he thinks he's lucky. That's the reason why Indians should do so well. So
But why are
the
you
same
picking on him,
thing.
Saurabh? The others haven't spoken either.
No,
Yeah, I was just going to
they're
say,
all of the same. They're all of the same mentality. You don't have anybody in the Indian community that is like Bill Ackman. You don't have anybody that's got that. I mean, these guys are rich. They have what's called FU money. Nothing's going to happen to them if they speak up, but they won't
I'm not
because
sure I agree
it's
with that, Dr. Jha.
yeah.
I mean, look at Zoran Mamdani. His whole thing is basically he's doing a giant F. And I know we're not going to talk about it, even though I'm seething and I really
I know
want
you're
to.
dying to talk
So we
about
keep
Zoran
it.
Mamdani,
Go ahead and
but
talk
but
about
But
it. Since he's come
yeah,
up,
but
go
but
but I
ahead.
but the
really,
thing is that
I think it's
but
important here. Just if I could make my point, I think yes, I think there's a lot of passive Indians who are here just to make a buck, just to live a sort of below the radar screen type of life, and not to cause a kerfuffle. Yes, a lot of those people don't even have money. Maybe Sundar Pichai is an exception to the rule. Maybe he's just a very passive aggressive person. Maybe he's the person who's been responsible for the reversing or partial backpedaling of this decision. But you do have the Vivek Ramaswamis who they don't shy away from amassing support for their viewpoint. You've got the Zoran Mamdanis. So I do see your point and I agree with it mainly, but I do think it's changing. I think Indians here are forming a backbone, they're forming an opinion. And I don't think that, so we're nowhere near what APAC is. APAC is a beast. And I think we need another couple of generations before we get to the heft of something like APAC and the sort of reach that APAC has. But I do think that's changing. And I think that's why probably if there was a herd mentality that said, vote Team Blue no matter what, I think after the last election, a lot of people have woken up and said, we didn't really like a lot of things about her. And we don't like a lot of things about him either. But overall, we're moving towards Team Red versus Team Blue. So I do think that's changing.
No, and
well,
there are
that is
consequences, right, Saurabh? When Vivek Ramaswamy first spoke about H1Bs, if you recall, when he was with Doge, and the kind of backlash he faced, and then subsequently had to exit that position. So there is a race element to it also, and there is a price to pay. Maybe the race element doesn't apply as much to a Bill Ackman as it would to a Vivek Ramaswamy.
I'm not sure I agree with
I
that,
don't,
Advaita.
I
I'll
don't
just
buy
chime
that.
in here.
But yeah,
Yeah, I don't buy that at all, actually.
yeah. But I will
You
say
don't?
that when
Yeah,
Vivek Ramaswamy said what he said, he
yeah,
was muted very rapidly.
yeah.
Like after that, he just didn't even speak. His decibels went from 10,000 to zero very, very rapidly. Now let's take
And
Zoran
let's be clear about
Mamdani.
what he said. But before
Yeah.
we move on to Zoran, Advaita, just so that we know what Vivek said, and he may not have meant it, I don't know the guy personally, but the way it came across, the way it landed on the general American public was Americans are too stupid. They don't study math. We need bright elitists like me to come in and save this country. That rubbed people the wrong way. And that's exactly
Well,
what
he
Dr. Jha is talking about, which is people are basically, the base, the MAGA base is saying, why do we now suddenly need foreigners coming in and taking away our jobs and getting paid 3 times as much? So I think he touched a nerve And I don't think it's because he's a brown man. If Elon Musk had said the same thing, I think it would have been the same, maybe worse.
So he
But
basically said that
just
their
let me
cultural
ask.
values are not the same as ours. The Indian values, studying for exams, whereas the Americans put too much emphasis on. I think he used the term prom nights, and that really pissed people off.
Yeah, something. Yeah, he tried to
Uh,
say that Americans are
yeah,
addicted to media versus Indians are addicted to taking exams.
yeah.
But
But
you
it
know,
came
Which
across in a very sort of supercilious way.
but do you think? I mean, there is a sense that this is also targeting Indians, because we've had the tariffs come in at 50%. We've had this kind of cold breeze blowing between the two countries since Operation Sindoor here in the summer, and 73% of H1B visas go to Indians.
Right.
Do you think this is also something to put India in its place, part of a larger battle between leadership?
That's a tough one. I mean, I think a lot of things that are happening that seem to be connected for a grand strategy, and I think one thing about this government is that I don't think that there is any grand strategy. I think I wouldn't say it's arbitrary, but it is very much like weather as opposed to climate. Things change on a day-to-day basis, even within the same day. What happened between Trump and Modi might have a completely different etiology to what is going on over here. So I don't think it's some sort of design to put India in its place. And I know that a lot of people in India believe that given India's growth, uh, the Americans are fearing India, and that may very well be true in some quarters. But on the other hand, it could very well be that many Americans would look at India and say, "Hey, look, let's partner with them to thwart the Chinese supremacy." So there are multiple. I mean, these are all hypotheses, but there are multiple possibilities. I don't think it's part of a grand design. I think it's just a bunch of things that have happened that have come together. But fundamentally, I think this government is an isolationist, protectionist government, which is trying to um, uh, give opportunities first and foremost to the Americans. It's probably not going about it the right way. This goes against all economic textbooks and all free market thinkers. So protectionism never helps, because if you protect any industry, you'll just spill costs to another industry, and the prices will be borne by the consumers over here. To some extent, I think there was a need for course correction, but of course, this is an overcorrection. That's what I think in terms of your question about, is this something specific towards India? I don't think so.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't think there's a grand strategy of let's China got out of hand and became China. Let's nip India in the bud before it becomes another threat. I genuinely don't think this administration or any administration thinks of India as an adversary. I think all administrations in the last, I'd say, 25 years at least, have viewed India as an important ally. Tariffs being what it is, and we know the rationale for that. But yeah, this is just about making it clear that companies should hire Americans, they should pay a fair wage, they should still be able to boost profits. This shouldn't be a backdoor entry into abusing human rights. This shouldn't be a backdoor way of bringing in illegal immigration by couching it as legal. And yeah, I do think some of it will be reversed, but I think the real thrust of the uh, the thrust or the rationale behind it was that of it comes within the whole thing, like Dr. Jha was saying. America first, hire Americans, seal the borders. We're not here to please other people. We're here to serve Americans first. I think that's the guiding force here.
What about people like Elon Musk going hammer and tongs at it? How much of an impact is that going to have? Is that going to shift the needle?
It's surprising you bring that up. I mean, Dr. Jha was expressing his disappointment at Indians not galvanizing. I was actually surprised that Elon Musk, for someone who's as vociferous and loudmouth as he is, he's actually come out. He hasn't come out hammer and tongs. He's just expressed disappointment, but he's expressed disappointment in the way that most people would just be disappointed about a warm day, for example. So he hasn't talked about how this is going to, like, I haven't seen any tweets where he's talked about how this is going to make the US lose its competitiveness, how we're going to lose all these jobs, how ultimately everything is going to get outsourced to places where these STEM jobs are being encouraged and being offered. I don't know. Maybe they know something we don't, but I haven't seen the outrage that I would have expected.
So
Considering
Elon Musk did a few months ago really come out in support of H1B, and he said, if anybody scraps this program, you'll have to face my wrath. Don't challenge me. Something to that effect.
Yeah, but he's also the one who silenced Vivek Ramaswamy when Vivek Ramaswamy did the same thing.
Could be. I think what you're seeing here is politics, layers of politics, and also another phenomenon where what do you blow your equity in? He has a certain amount of equity. I mean, he is the richest man in the world, and arguably he helped Trump across the finish line. But he blew a lot of his equity with the whole Doge program, where he went a bit, mad with his tweets against Trump. I think he called him a pedophile, accused him of hiding the Epstein files. And so he lost a lot of equity there. So he's trying to rebuild
it's funny
that.
You bring that up, Dr. Jha, but because I was actually going to address this with Advaita earlier. I do think whether it's tariffs, whether it's Charlie Kirk, whether it's this H1B, I do think this is one attempt after another to get Epstein files out of the news cycle. And it's just not leaving the news cycle.
Oh, you mean, wait 1 second, let me come back here. You mean Charlie Kirk's assassination has something to do with the Epstein files?
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, so I'm not for a moment suggesting that the Trump administration engineered the assassination or anything of that sort. But I'm saying this overemphasis, sort of making the memorial service into a political rally rather than a personal family event. Bringing up this sort of shock value news about H1Bs is just really soundbite after soundbite to distract from the Epstein files. That's what I'm saying.
I don't think so.
To a certain extent, it's working.
No,
because when you can get the FBI, when you can get Kash Patel to focus 100% on the killer's motives and talk about everything that they're doing, people don't ask so many questions.
Charlie Kirk was a political tour de force, and his assassination had the impact because it was a very natural, organic impact to have. But my point with Musk is that with Musk, he blew his equity earlier on.
Yeah.
And in this space, which I don't frequent, and I have no idea how people, there is, of course, a limited things you can do. There's a limited number of projects that you can appeal to any president, whether it's Trump or whether it's Clinton. There's going to be a limited bandwidth of possibilities. So Musk might have been able to do more had he not really gone after the efficiency and taken personally with the big beautiful bill and all of that with the spending. So he got really upset with the spending. He said, well, the spending is not going to go down, then what's the point of all of this? So there are many interconnected things, but I think much of what is happening over here is really just, in the end, I think it may just be Trump playing politics. Trump cheering his base on. He's made this $100,000 fee for the H1B. It'll get negotiated down. It'll get whittled down, and he'll say he tried. And then there's a lot of political amnesia over here. He'll move on to the next thing. We'll all move on to the next thing.
Ja,
we'll all move on to the next
Saurabh,
news
I also
cycle.
think, yeah, I think it's also got to do with the fact that in the grand scheme of things, yes, it's a lot of money, but who's the one who gets impacted the most? Amazon. They get 10,000 visas per year. So what's the physical impact on them? $1 billion per year? Will they really stop doing business and hiring the people that they want to hire just because of $1 billion? I mean, they pay so much more in FCC fines and everything else. So I do think that at the end of the day, whether it's Musk, whether it's Pichai, whether it's Microsoft, all these guys, they sort of just put a number to it and say, fine, it gets Trump off our back. It's one news cycle. He has a win. It's $1 billion more. Fine, let's do it. I do think that that's also one way of looking at it. But
No, I agree.
I
Actually, I agree that the big corporations don't really. I mean, for them, it's just going to be a rounding error. Other things very interesting. You know, the corporate work ethic in India. They work very hard, right? I think who was that guy that said that they should be working 90 hours a week? Was it Narayan
Narayan,
Murthy?
yeah,
Yeah.
Rishi Sunak's father-in-law.
Oh, right. Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it was
Rishi Sunak's. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So,
yeah,
so the Indian sort of work ethic that you have, it's of course not just confined to the H1B visas. You see that in corporate India as well. It's quite frightening for your average American. I mean, one way of looking at it is they're being exploited, and they're being given golden handcuffs, or they're not. It's not really that much gold in the handcuffs. The other is that the Indians are just extraordinarily hardworking people that have no concept of weekends, have no
right.
concept of
Of boundaries, like
five
yeah,
p.m. They don't go skiing, they don't go hiking, they just work, and that really scares a lot of people. So how do you compete with that? You can't. No, you have any organization, and they have an option of getting somebody that for, let's just say, $120,000 works 90 hours a week, doesn't question you. Every time you answers the email promptly, and on Sundays you can call and say what's going on, and then you have the American person who talks about rights more than responsibilities. Who do you
right.
hire? And so
I think
you've
there's
got
there's
this
something to be
asymmetry
said
of here.
about that. Yeah, as politically incorrect as that is, I do think, Advaita, that's an important point to it, where any forget about the money, and the money is important because on average there is abuse. So if you can hire an Indian person for $10,000 or $20,000 less than an American, that's an incentive. But yeah, to Saurabh's point, if that person then he's going to use the word servile, I'll just call the adjective I would use is pliable, maybe accommodating, pliable, team worker, trooper. These are
All
the
right.
things.
Okay.
These are
Okay.
these are the
Okay.
things that one hears about. And from an employer's point of view, from a boss's point of
Yeah.
view, it's like, yeah, when I say jump, you say how high, rather than saying I'm going to report you to the Department of Labor because my union hours have not been paid. So I do think there's some of that also, which comes in.
They're just easier to deal with
Yeah,
in a lot of
the
ways.
work
Yeah.
the work gets done. And I do think that's a very attractive feature from an employer's point of view. But Saurabh, again, back to your point from earlier, maybe, and again, I don't get paid by Sundar Pichai to do his PR, and maybe he is a very timid person who is an H1B mentality. But Google is number 7 in the beneficiaries of H1Bs. So I would argue that TCS and Apple and Amazon and Microsoft and Meta, these guys, I mean, where's Mark Zuckerberg's ire? Why aren't we seeing Jeff Bezos jumping up and down? So, yeah, all these
No,
guys are
it's not. It's
suffering.
not. It's not
But
about. It's not about any individual CEO. It's about the collective um, lobbying
mentality,
of people from India, for people from India, for the Indian subcontinent, or rather for India. Forget the Indian subcontinent, for India. You don't see much of that. And Shashi Tharoor was absolutely right. that India is kind of on its kind of alone, and
No,
it's
and
something I've.
also, if I may ask, there is the Indian American population, but then there's also the American billionaire, like the ones you mentioned, who have interests in India, who see it as an expanding market, who want to build relationships, who want to penetrate the market further. Why are they not speaking up?
I as sad as it is, but I think it's a truth. There's no equivalent of an APAC, and I think you need that
Explain
because
that to our viewers, please. APAC,
yeah,
what it
sorry.
does, why it's required.
Yeah, so as Dr. Jha was talking about, why did Bill Ackman do what he did? Um, it's because he is a very important part of the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, APAC, which is a pro-Israel lobbying organization that is working constantly to strengthen and empower the U.S.-Israel relationship. It takes people to Israel. It is constantly talking about what Zionism is. It's talking about joint defense missile programs. It lobbies for intelligence sharing. There's political fundraising. There's educational initiatives. I would encourage you to take a look at their website. It is so well funded. It is the equivalent of donating to churches or temples or gurdwaras. That's how powerful APAC is, and we don't have that. And I would say it is APAC through the donations and the overall support of people like Ackman who write these 1,000-word tweets every time there's even the slightest of focus away from Israel onto Palestine. He is the one who will showcase what happened on October 10th. And every time someone like Candace Owens starts becoming seen as even slightly anti-Israel, God forbid, anti-Semitic, he comes down on her like a ton of bricks. So, yeah, we just don't have that.
Do you
And if
think
we
if we
had that,
had that, do you think if we had that, the Indian American community would donate to it in the way the Jewish community donates to APAC?
So
no,
I don't want to say no, because
I'd say no.
that sounds very absolutist. I think with a lot of these things, it is a case of people jumping on the bandwagon. And so if there is a critical mass that deems it important, then other people will deem it important, and then you'll get a non-linear
I think I
growth.
would say no. But if, for example, this thing about these poor young men and women who were on flights from San Francisco to Dubai and they didn't know whether they should stay on the flight or they should jump off. If India had the equivalent of an APAC, they would have just taken over. They would have lobbied the White House right away and said, "You need to give us direction." They would have taken Howard Lutnick's words, word for word, got clarification on it, sent directives everywhere. Now, all this requires staffing, money, resources, commitment. And that, I think, once an H1B person sitting on a flight can see the impact that has, then maybe he or she will donate. But in the absence of that, I hate to be a
You know,
pessimist, but my answer is
we
no.
think we think we have an embassy there in DC
Yeah.
that's going to
Yeah.
take care of this, but that's not how it works in the US.
Well, it's
The
not just
embassy
the
here
embassy.
was, I'm sorry to say, the embassy here was staffed to send out missives for Modi's birthday celebration. So don't get me started on what the embassy was supposed to do versus what it ended up doing.
No, so it's not really so this is not something that the embassy can do. So I mean, you have to understand that this is a very much of a network. I don't know that Bill Ackman is has a very high position in APAC, but if you say
It
so,
doesn't
I'll take
matter,
your word
Ja.
for it. Right?
Sorry,
Yeah.
what he does is he is a contributing member,
No,
and
no.
he is.
What I'm saying is, I think it's important to disentangle this because, yes, there is a chicken and egg phenomenon. What comes first, the funding or the organization? And once you have the organization, you get the funding. There's also the mentality that leads to the funding, that leads to the sentinel fund. But there is also another element here, which is to understand what you need to get that level of support. And it starts at multiple levels. Firstly, the universities. You need to have a more pro-India stance at university. You can't just be self-flagellating and thinking that India, bringing the worst out of India and saying, "Oh, this is academic discourse." That's one element. The embassy actually is the weakest link. The embassy is probably not the place you would start.
Yeah.
You do need an organization, like you said, like the APAC, although it doesn't need to be as powerful as the APAC, but it has to be a start. But the bigger problem over here is that, and I don't know that there is a solution to this, is that the communities that have come from India to the United States, whether it is the Hindus, uh, the Sikhs, the Muslims, they have brought with them the same fractiousness that they had in India. In fact, greater than what they had in India over here. So for them to coalesce as a united front, I just think is a pipe dream. So I agree with you in that. I'm kind of contradicting what I said earlier on with some optimism.
But
So that's one of the problems that you have. The second problem that you have is that the idea of any form of trade with India, any form of this US-India relationship, which can be based on trade or some sort of mutual benefit, it's not the Indians that are pushing for that. If anything, the people pushing for that are, well, they're Americans, so the Indians are also Americans. What I'm saying is there's not the Indian diaspora that is necessarily pushing for that. So there is both the problem of the disunity, which gets magnified when they come over here, and you'll be amazed what gets magnified. It's like the caste differences. Like, what the hell? I don't even know what caste is, but somehow people bring that up over here. Then the religious differences that come
I
up.
was just coming to that. I was just coming to
Yeah.
that. We hear more noise. I think it was Portland or somewhere, one of those liberal cities, wherein a caste became a factor, and the city council voted on it. And then there was this conversation about having reservations and private companies. I mean,
Oh my
you
God.
hear so much more noise about caste in the US than you hear about a whole country being put through this.
Yeah, it was Seattle, and
Yeah.
there was this awful
Yeah.
city councillor. But you know, the point here, when we look at it, when you want to look at everything in totality, y- the thing to understand is India's strength has always been the fact that it is diverse, and that is a strength. You know, it has God knows how many languages, over 1,000, I believe, languages, dialects, religions, and yes, that is its strength for sure. But that is also its weakness when you take all of these Indians and you bring them to the United States. They don't just, I mean, the only thing that kind of unites people is cricket, and that's only generational. The next
But
generation, they don't give a crap about cricket either.
but Dr.
They
Jha,
start thinking
here's
about
something that
baseball.
could here's something that could unite all the Indian. For example, if there is if project I'm losing out on the name again. If Project Firewall is supposed to expose abuse, what a fantastic time for at least the Indian companies, TCS, Wipro, HCL, to just get together and say, no, we're not underpaying people. No, we're not falsifying records. We're not body shopping. And, show that it's very different from, for example, the crackdown that happened on Korean workers in Georgia. I mean, what a great way to band together on a value, the value that Indians do not cheat, Indians do not hoodwink the systems. And here is a great example of the top companies which have ADRs and GDRs on the New York Stock Exchange, who are upset at the fact that you would even insinuate that there's any kind of abuse. And here's the thing, here are the records for the last 10 years, everything's been done above the board. I mean, what a great way to actually start by showing we're united in the fact that when we go abroad, even in India, we do things the right way, and that's why we have the companies that have the reputation. Now, I hope that's true, firstly, but if it, and if it isn't, then maybe there's a way to rectify it. But what a great way to unify.
We have some questions that have come in from our viewers. So before we end, I just want to ask a couple of them. Let's start with this one, which says, please talk about inflation and rising Christian nationalism in the US. I mean, the Charlie Kirk Memorial was stunning.
Yeah,
People don't
I
turn
agree.
out in numbers in the US. So
I
something
agree.
is shifting. They're calling it a revival, but there's something that's moving.
So let me answer this. I want to answer this.
Go for it.
It's like this question was designed for me. So what you call Christian, revivalism or nationalism, I think it's important, and I'm glad they're doing this. This is a country founded on Judeo-Christian values, and over the years, there's been a death of Christmas. I mean, there was a time when you would be frowned upon if you said Merry Christmas. I insist on saying Merry Christmas,
When
even
when
though I'm not.
Starbucks started
Holidays.
canceling
Yeah,
Christmas
yeah.
cups.
Happy
When even
holidays.
when you say Happy Holiday, which is so bland, and I liken this to the revivalism of Hinduism in India, which is also important. It's India's civilization, which stretches back 5,000 years, was a Vedic civilization, and I'm glad to see that. Of course, up to an extent. I mean, you can't overdo it, but yes, that is the core value of this country, is Judeo-Christianism, and I have no issues in saying Merry Christmas. In fact, I like Christmas. I get a tree for the family and we get gifts. There's another excuse to get gifts. And I watch Die Hard for every Christmas, which is a Christmas movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Some would dispute that, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so when in the Charlie Kirk funeral, when they're quoting, the Bible, the Matthew and Isaiah and all of that, that's good. I think that's good. That's and I think that I don't think that one should conflate that with racism. I don't think one should conflate that with white supremacy. I think this is their history. This is their culture. This is how through centuries of canons and the writings, you had the American Revolution, and it's just progression of history. It's what has happened in the last 30 years with extreme left wing, the militant secularism that everything is equal and you have to say happy holiday. That's abnormal. This is good. This is normal.
Yeah.
So I don't
can
think there's
agree
anything wrong
more.
with that.
I can
Um,
agree more. I mean,
yeah.
I went to college in the Bible Belt, right? So just to give you context, Marjorie Taylor Greene is the representative of the area that I was
Mhm.
in. So I'm very comfortable with this. I don't have a problem with this because I feel like devout Christians are actually very good people. They're generous, they're kind, and sure, they have their beliefs and their opinions. And as long as they don't convert you, I think they're great people because they're godly, they're helpful, and no problem at all with it. What about you, Rohan? I mean, do you see it as problematic?
Not at all. Yeah, I was very moved by the memorial. And I thought, what a wonderful way of getting back to honoring a man who you may or may not agree with his political views or his values. But I mean, he stood for freedom of speech, that was honored. He stood for being known as a man of faith, as a man of God. He wanted to be remembered for that. So what a great way to remember him. So yes, not just Matthew, but also Ecclesiastes, and I mean, like all of his verses were read out, and I didn't see that as sort of Christian nationalism over minority rights. I saw that as a way of actually saying a Judeo-Christian society is actually very accepting of and inclusive of everyone else. So I think what it did was it really alerted people to, this was the America of the 60s and the 70s where there was harmony and there was less divide, and people actually, no matter what your faith, the values are what came through. So I thought it was a wonderful thing, and just to get 100,000 people together in such a short period of time, and to have like gospel choirs and I mean such a moving speech by his wife,
I
his widow.
I didn't
I thought that
realize
was good.
Christian music had become so good
It is
because I
so good.
remember it from 30 years ago, and
It
it
is
was it
so
wasn't
good.
as good,
It is so
but
mainstream.
it is very
I thought
good.
that was really good.
Yeah,
No, and to
but
address the point on inflation, I don't know how it's related to Christian nationalism, but I mean, I do think it's an area of concern. I don't think it's as concerning as it would be, say, in Europe, where it's a much bigger concern. So I'd say we've got bigger problems, but yes, inflation is one of them.
But Rohan, you also had a situation wherein the leftists, and this is, were celebrating. You had Saurabh doctors who were being obnoxious. I mean, people who are caregivers, kindergarten school teachers, having the most obnoxious response to Charlie Kirk's killing, which is frankly shocking because this wasn't left wing loonies. These were so called regular people who, yes, are leftist in their ideology. And I guess they are loonies if they react like this, but not the purple haired kind of nose ring wearing stereotype that one thinks of.
I'll attempt that before giving it to Dr. Jha. I agree. It was absolutely abhorrent. I mean, I can't imagine how anyone can even start a statement by saying, I may not have agreed with his views, but a man died. No, now's the time to just say, a man of God died, and he's got two children under 3 years old, and a wife who's left behind. Period. And to his credit, Gavin Newsom said exactly that. Bernie Sanders said exactly that. It's the Ilhan Omars and the AOCs of the world who are frankly to be held responsible here, because they're the ones who say, well, it's in print, it's, what he said is unacceptable, how dare he say that people like me as a black woman of color don't have the brain processing power. Not the time. Have a podcast, talk about it 2 months from now, and talk about exactly what he said, and if in fact it has been taken out of context. But for now, just call out, be a senior statesman. I mean, I obviously I hear what you're saying about the
It's
doctors and the
vile.
teachers,
It's vile. And
but look where
has
it's coming from.
Mamdani said anything?
Well, again, in his defense, I think what he said is very, very mild and sort of politically correct. It's like I said, it's Ilhan Omar, AOC, it's the squad basically, and a couple of other people. Yeah, the guy I keep comparing Dr. Jha to, the Zeteo guy who I can't stand.
Which guy?
What's his name? Saurabh, the Zeteo guy.
Oh,
ZE.
Mehdi Hassan.
Mehdi Hassan. Oh,
Mehdi
right.
Hassan.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, he's inciting a lot of fires. He's holding all
Yeah.
these parts.
Even now?
He's bringing Joy
Even now?
Reid, and especially now, he had Joy Reid on a podcast this morning. He had Ilhan Omar on his podcast yesterday, like irking them. Like, what do you think? When he was saying that black women like you don't have the brain processing power and should and have benefited from DEI, which stands for didn't deserve it or didn't earn it. Like, what a time to stoke a fire. So I hold people like Mehdi Hassan, Joy Reid, Michelle Obama, all these people. I mean, for that matter, even Barack Obama. I mean, what he could have said, which was very graceful, he could have just said, a man died, a family man who never hurt anyone. But then he said, but for him to suggest that someone like my wife doesn't have the brain processing power as a white man, no need for him to say that. Because we don't really know if it's true. And if it is, which he did say that, in what context was it said? But I do think there's a time and place for a debate, and there's a time and a place for just holding space for someone who's grieving.
So I think you mentioned obnoxious doctors. I've never met an obnoxious doctor. Now, of course,
Have you,
doctors.
Rohan? Have you met an obnoxious doctor?
Oh no, don't ask
Well,
him.
I'll plead the fifth on that one.
So the thing is that it's a marker of polarization more than anything else. I don't think that it means anything more than the fact that people now express themselves more freely than ever before, and in ways that doesn't require much in terms of a barrier. So that's what social media does, and so I don't think I would extrapolate or project anything more than that.
Okay.
The
I
left,
do
the
think
left
so, Dr. Shah.
has
I'll say one thing, just to sort of counter that point. Yes, social media gives you a sense of armor against having to address people directly, but to Advaita's point, what it does is if you fundamentally disagree with something or someone, celebrating a death gives you a perverse sense of victory. And I think that's what she's talking about. And it's nothing but perverse. And that's what people have
no.
done.
So what has happened? What is the difference between now and let's say 30 years from 30 years ago? Was that you would have people 30 years ago who, if they were offended by Charlie Kirk, would deep down not be terribly upset that he died. The difference now is that that decorum, that you keep that thought to yourself, has gone.
Yeah.
And now people express it more freely. And once people start expressing it, it's like a chain reaction.
But do you
Everybody
think
else
it's only a
expresses.
question of decorum, or does it also have to do with a certain mentality that has grown over time? The way you see, the lefties responding to Luigi Mangione, carrying
I mean, there are so many
billboards.
women who basically have offered to make. It's shocking, but there are so many women and men who've offered to have conjugal visits with him in jail. I mean, there's a sense of like detached from reality of like not only is he great for what he did, he's also so handsome and so desirable that I'd like to have a relationship with him. I mean, yeah, there is that element of pure delusion, frankly, that's
And
coming.
he's somebody who, at 6 a.m. in the morning, shot dead a man, a health
20 blocks from
insurance
me.
CEO,
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he's angry.
yeah, and people
Honestly, I
are
don't think that
almost
I don't,
celebrating it.
I don't, I don't think that I think these are very primal characteristics. I don't think, I mean, it's kind of weird that I'm defending the left.
That was supposed to be
I can't,
my
uh,
job.
I,
I
I
told you
can't,
I'd disappoint you.
I can't believe that I'm doing that, but I think it's just primal human nature. It's always been there. It's just comes out a lot more now than it's ever done before because people are very incontinent with their words and thoughts these days.
But I
There's
ask
no
you one question,
discretion.
Dr. Jha, and I can't believe I'm the one who's not defending the left here. But when George Floyd happened,
Yes.
and if you literally just take like apples to apples, George Floyd as a human being was, let's put it politely, less accomplished and maybe not such a nice human being because he had been incarcerated 8 times and he was peddling drugs. He was using drugs. And again, none of this takes away from the fact that he was brutally murdered. But if you take apples to apples, you could argue that Charlie Kirk was a superior human being in terms of the fact that at least he never hurt anyone and he never sold drugs or anything of that sort. And yet, there was such outrage that there were riots in 11 cities in 2020. And I knock on wood as I say it, there's nothing but grief at this point. The right, I have to sort of doff my hat to them. Nobody is calling for arms. And I think that is admirable. So yeah, my team is
No,
performing quite
no,
badly.
there are no riots. They just imposed $100,000 on the H1B. That was their way of getting back. No, I'm just kidding. You're right. There were no riots, and that is something to be commended.
No,
And there's no
and you have
inciting
the
of
wife.
violence either. There's,
Yeah.
I mean, Jasmine Crockett tells, like, okay, she has the right. The right went a little far. They wanted to sort of have they wanted to institutionalize something in Congress to commemorate Charlie Kirk, and the Dems voted against it. Okay, I I can see that they don't want him to be remembered in history as a great man. They want him to be forgotten. Okay, I can get my head around that. You don't have to canonize someone. You don't have to lionize someone. But what she said after that was distressing, which is she said that of the 50 people who voted against it, 47 of them were people of color, and only 3 Caucasians voted against it. So she made it about race. And I'm just thinking, here's a person who died for exercising free speech, and you made it about yourself and about race. How's that moving the conversation forward? So,
But that's the identity politics of the left, right?
Well, look at Kamala Harris today. For someone who's so pro-LGBTQ and sort of like defender of rights, she said, I didn't choose Pete Buttigieg because he's gay. I mean, that's homophobic. In her book, 107 Days, she said he was my top candidate, but the optics of a black South Asian woman with a gay man, America wasn't ready for it. Really?
Which is probably true that in their kind of, maybe it is true. Maybe it is true.
I'm not sure.
If the country is drifting towards a more muscular version of nationalism, maybe she did have a point. She was being expedient in that sense. And for some reason, Saurabh Jha has left because
I know he's
sort of he found himself defending the
yeah. He's so offended by my statement. No, I found it shocking that at least someone who is so far left, who clearly wants to really be a defender of rights, who would say, no, America is ready for a black woman. America is ready for a gay man. She basically insulted the American population by saying
absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
And how can we forget the fact that in 2008 and in 2012, this country voted for a black man with a middle name Hussein. So, I do think we don't give people enough credit that, when the right candidate with the right values and the right presentation comes through, I think great things can happen. And
here's one more question. I thought you could answer this one.
Yeah.
See, the grand crypto plan to get rid of the 35 trillion debt. Inflation is inflated away by tying it to stable coin. Russia already exposed this idea. Mr. Mastercard, I don't know who that is. I don't understand this question also, but I thought maybe you did. Oh, you don't? Okay,
understand
great.
It. No, I don't.
We don't understand it. Nothing here. We don't get it.
I think it has to just do with the fact that there's a lot of debt. And, what is the ways? And I think this administration is, at least what I like about the fact that at least they're accepting the fact that there's a lot of debt that needs to be handled. So if crypto is one of the ways to get rid of it, that could be one. I just don't know enough about that.
But we've now run over time. But thank you so much, Rohan. It's late at night for you, and I hope you come back because we have to discuss Mamdani.
We do. I really have a lot of thoughts there.
Yes, we must, because we are also interested here in India. And I just want to thank our viewers. It's 8 in the morning. It's a working day. But we not only had consistent viewership, we also had it increase through the course of the conversation. So maybe we caught people on their commute, which might be a good idea to hit this time.
Fantastic.
But do come back, Rohan. It would be lovely, and we'll plan again on how to do the Mamdani, when to do it. I think the elections are in November, right? So we're not that far off.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, we should do it soon. I said it's in November, so we should do it soon.
We should do it soon. But thank you so much, everybody, for joining us this morning. And we'll get Rohan back, so you'll see him again. But thank you so much, Rohan, and have a great night. And the rest of you, get to work. And do like, share, subscribe. Yeah, I always forget that. Bye. Bye-bye.